small numbers of people who come out and vote, but it affects all of us. It's right in our backyard. And it is so critical, and I've been on city council for 8 years. And it's amazing, when I first got in there, fortunately, I'm still as cantankerous as I was with the first day that I got in there, because I realized the fact that who I represent is not the city government. They got plenty of people that represent the city government. The people I represent are the people paying the bills, the taxpayers. It's one thing after another that keeps on happening. Tuesday night we had a public hearing where people get up and say how they want. We've got a lot of folks living in Lynchburg, by the way. If you don't live in Lynchburg, you still have a negative impact on what the city of Lynchburg does. Because what the city of Lynchburg does, guess what? Doesn't take too long, 10 years, and it'll be in the county. Those things happen to migrate because of the fact that folks that live in Lynchburg, all of a sudden they move. And they say, well, man, we like that from Lynchburg, and so they like to take those things with them. And they like to then raise taxes out in the county, or having extra water fees and all, you name it, kind of things that eventually migrates towards the county. So it does have a major impact, even if you don't live in the city limits. With that, so we have the public hearing on Tuesday. And this public hearing now, there's 3 major proposals. One major proposal is raising the meals tax, 15%. Pretty good time to be raising taxes on folks. And the meals tax is not if you just eat in a restaurant. It's if you go to Sheetz and buy a cup of coffee or buy a hot dog, that it is a prepared meals tax. So they're proposing a 15% increase, going from 6.5% meals tax to 7.5% meals tax. Coupled with sales tax, it'll go from 11.5% to 12.5%, which is one of the highest, not only in the state or the country, but probably in the galaxy. I mean, it's totally the wrong implication. Second proposal is to raise real estate taxes, another 10%. Okay? The third option is, because of the fact that God sends water from the sky and through rain, we have got to not only treat the quantity of the water that falls from the sky, we have to treat the quality. And so a proposal for another $2 million stormwater management fee. Thing after thing, in a time when the economy is bad, they keep always having in government, you know, you read all the things, and government always has a litany of reasons why they can spend our money. There's never a source of lack of good reasons. I mean, they always have great reasons why they can take money from you and spend it over there. I was really surprised at our public hearing the other day when a prominent citizen got up, who used to be on the school board, who got up and said, you know, I just love our public school system because of the fact that my husband and I, who happens to be a cardiologist, saved between $12,000 and $15,000 by not having to pay for violin lessons for our children. And I thought, my gracious. So all of your neighbors got to pitch in for the poor cardiologist to pay for their kids' fiddle lessons? Come on. And that's the problem, where you have people that are just saying, take from you, I'll take a guitar. So I need lessons, but what I could use is make a law that all my neighbors have got to pitch in to buy me a new guitar. You know, I mean, it's no different. It's sad that you have that kind of mentality that says, what can we get out of the thing? You know, rather than the role of what government is supposed to be about. Then I pull up the paper. You all read the paper, and thank you, Alicia, for she wrote a couple good articles this morning, but I had heartburn on reading both of them. The first one was what? Talked about GLTC. GLTC, the very first thing on the front page of the paper, again, this is local, and this matters. You know, there's not much we can do about the federal government. We have to do what we can. We have a huge impact local. GLTC board, which is government funded and whatnot, the Greater Lynchburg Transit Company. SunTrust Bank said, hey, now keep in mind, SunTrust Bank, do you all read the article, by the way? SunTrust Bank GLTC board wanted to renew a $500,000 line of credit. SunTrust Bank, who is a bank that their goal is what? Is to safeguard their depositors' resources and minimize risk. GLTC came, hey, we want to renew our line of credit. The only way GLTC would renew their line of credit is to bring it to us, city council, to say you guys, the taxpayers, will back up their poor risk. And it's like, okay, the people who are the professionals in the business say, we ain't touching that.
Yeah.
But you guys can, because a couple of folks on city council can hit a button and say, well, they can't take the risk, but you guys sure can. Then I flip a couple more pages, and I read about the housing authority that met yesterday. And what does the housing authority do? Did anybody read that? This is today's paper in Lynchburg.
$20,000 raise.
$20,000 raise. The person was just hired less than 6 months ago.
20+%.
20+%. I mean, you know, the person comes moving, and guess what? I'm sure, I wasn't at the meeting, but I'm sure there's gonna be really good reasons.
Oh, yes.
Right? Oh man, you know, they're not just doing it blindly.
You got more work to do.
You don't understand that it's this, come on. You know, and you wonder why Lynchburg is becoming what it's becoming. I've been here since 1985. I came here for school, ended up staying, I graduated, have a couple degrees in finance, a couple masters in finance. I look at numbers, so I look at the facts and I look at things, and I'm tired of hearing the other side, all they tout is rhetoric. Lynchburg right now, 1 out of every 4 people living in the city of Lynchburg are on food stamps now. 1 out of 4, 18,000 out of 72,000 folks. I look at this and I think, wow.
That makes them eligible for a free phone though.
It just, it's thing after thing. You know, and you look at this and you go, how is this sustainable? How is this ability to continue? And the problem is you know, all those 3 things that I mentioned, the tax increase on the meals tax, the tax increase on real estate tax, tax increase on stormwater management fees that are all coming about. Why do you think they have to just all of a sudden soak the taxpayers? Because they spent the money on every other thing that they ought not to have been spending money on.
Amen.
They ought not to be spending all this money that they've been doing with downtown revitalization. Our public school system has the highest cost per student in the entire region 2000. The only place that has a school that didn't pass state accreditation. The only place in the whole region that 14 out of 16 of our schools didn't even pass adequate yearly progress. But they love to tout how wonderful. Well, money, we all know, doesn't solve problems. What solves problems is people who care, and what they're doing is incentivizing the people who care to just move about 100 yards down the street or a couple miles a little farther north, and to say, you know, taxes are a whole lot less. We're not gonna have to worry about somebody knocking down your door and inspecting your home with the home warrant invasions that they had a few months ago when several folks came and spoke out against that. Those are the wrong directions, and that's right here in Lynchburg, Virginia. And it's sad. We do have an election that's coming up, May 1st. I'm running a re-election. I don't have an opponent. I guess everybody knows where I stand, and so I joked with the reporter when she came in here. I said, "Uh-oh, now I got to tone down my speech." I read a Bible verse a long time ago. It says we're not supposed to be a respecter of persons, and I say the same thing on Sundays. I'm going to say on Tuesday. So we have some trouble, but we have some ability and some, you know, there are a whole lot of headwinds against us, but we can change that. We can change that this May 1st. Ward 2, downtown, got a contested race. Ward 1, Boonsboro, Rivermont area, contested race. We need some help because of the fact that they've been just spending money, and then when they run out of money, they just go right back to the well and say, we need more money so we can pay for other kids' fiddle lessons. And that's got to end. So anyway, thank you all for being here. I don't know if you have any questions, or if I should sit down, or.
We could take about 4 questions.
Okay, yes,
Just
sir.
make a comment, a lot of that money that's spent is nothing more than buying votes, so they can get in office.
And it's really no different, as you put these numbers up here, you look at the federal budget, well, you look at the state budget, you look at the local budget, all they are is the same thing, same percentages, just a few more zeros at the end. Well, you just have a few more people to spread that out over, so the more that we, absolutely, sorry.
I guess my question goes back to the meal tax. Like, I moved here from Washington State. We
Yep.
have no meal tax there at all. And so coming here and I saw 5%, this is ridiculous. Here it's going up to 15%. Like, it needs to go to 0. Why is food being taxed? Is there a way to get it, not to just prevent it from going up, but to actually return it to nothing?
Which, I mean, the only way you can do that is to change the people. I mean, for 8 years, I've been arguing and showing facts of what's gonna happen. And I look at things factually because I look at it from a financial standpoint. With that, I say, here's what's gonna happen, and a little bit later, exactly what happens. Not because I'm some genius, anybody would do the same thing when you look at cause and effect. So in order to have the effect that you want, we've got to change the people. I've tried for 8 years to rationalize with them and say, you know, we need to change some things. Well, that hasn't worked very well. So, you know, you look at what's happened basically in the state of Virginia. Food tax, you know, the food that you buy at the grocery store used to be 5%, right? A couple of years ago, the General Assembly lowered food to 2.5%. So now that gap has widened. You go buy a chicken that's unprepared at Kroger, you pay 2.5%. They threw it in the roaster for a few minutes. Now it's a 10% increase, so it's a 12.5%, or going to 12.5%. Right now it's 11.5% because it's prepared food. So the state of Virginia has a 5% on normal sales tax, 2.5% on food. Prepared food, Lynchburg is 11, going up to 12.5. So, Jordan.
Are you actually saying as the producers are forced out of Lynchburg by higher taxes, and the users are still in Lynchburg, will be even more pressure on the producers?
What you said, it's increased tremendously over the last 8 years. And people are wondering why we need to have a change on council. Well, because of the fact that they've tried that. We built a brand new unnecessary school for $29 million. By the way, it's the only school in the entire Region 2000 that didn't pass a state accreditation. Region 2000, for those of you who don't know, Lynchburg is 50 square miles. Region 2000 is 2,000 square miles. The only school that didn't pass the state accreditation standards was the brand new $29 million school. And you hear from the other side that says, well, the problem is we didn't spend enough money.
Right.
So if we'd have spent $30 million, woo, they would have probably passed. Yes, ma'am.
Just for clarification purposes, what did you say the estate tax was going to be raised to?
The estate tax, the estate tax is a different.
Real estate.
Real estate tax is currently $1.05, being proposed to go to $1.15. The 10-cent real estate tax, the actual tax rate would go up 10 cents, which is close to 10%. 10 cents divided by $1.05 is really, yes sir, Josiah.
So Jeff, couple of questions. First, when does this come to a vote? Second, how can we, I know you've already had like hearings and stuff, is there anything more we can do to get involved and kind of counteract? I know there's been
show support.
Yeah, you tell us the names and we'll make sure those people get out.
Yeah.
And also, do you think this is going to be another one of those 4-3 votes where it
Hard
passes
to tell.
like that?
I mean, I've met with the restaurant folks, because and two, the meals tax, for example, is a pass-through tax. So the owners of the restaurant don't pay it; they collect it from you, and so who does it affect? It affects the person who's the wait staff, who's making $2.13 an hour, and you get a bill that you thought on the menu said $10, and now it's got this huge extra tax on there, and so you cut out your tip a little bit, you know, or so it affects the wait staff. It affects the restaurant and the building a new restaurant in Lynchburg when you can go right down the street in Campbell County and that's $0, or you go to Bedford County, it's a lot smaller. It affects I mean, the effects are endless. It affects us, who every time we go buy a cup of coffee at Sheetz, you know, so the effects aren't just the restaurant. So but the restaurant, I met with a lot of the restaurateurs, other folks have as well. They're mad because it's really kind of singling out one specific industry and going after them.
Right.
Government realized a long time ago, those of you who've been here a while, several years ago, you may remember that there was a sales tax being proposed in Lynchburg. Anybody here that remember that? It was eventually, fortunately, came to a referendum. The other side that said, yes, we want this sales tax increase so we can spend more for our children.
Nah.
Their children's fiddle lessons. So I don't have to pay for it. So they proposed that. It was heavily funded. A lot of the uppities paid for it. A lot of the liberals said, oh, this would be great. They put advertising campaigns. The other side did nothing other than people showed up, and it got soundly defeated. So we gotta wrap it up. It got soundly defeated, and so now they're trying to they realize fighting a big industry is hard. When you divide and conquer, that's how you get those tax increases in. So, anyway, thank you all.
Thank you.